Welcome to the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Let's do this thing.
It's just two guys talking sports, and we actually pay them to do it.
You volunteered, didn't you? We're paying you, aren't we?
The first of the duo is an opinionated local sports editor who has made a name for himself thanks to his beard.
That's a serious beard you got going on. I mean, you're heading toward Doug Dynasty, but well-groomed. That's a good look. If I ever did that, that's the look I would go for.
The other guy is a guy who takes no prisoners when it comes to sports.
Let's stomp these dudes.
Together, they bring you the best in Oklahoma State sports talk and opinions on sports from around the country.
That's right. Listen up. Hey, listen up. You.
It's Jason Elmquist.
A day, I'm a mild-mannered reporter for the newspaper.
And Patrick Wheeler.
I'm a very dangerous man.
This is the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
That's what I'm talking about. Sport.
You ain't never heard nothing like this. Let me work, show me where the mic is. I'm on stage, black shirt and my Timbs. You know how I do it, I ain't playing with you, I've been grinding. Anybody trying to sleep on me, better do something with your eyelids. I hear a lot of whining, but I don't hear a lot of rhyming. Everybody got opinions, let it go into my ear, then I block that. Put me on stage.
Welcome into the Afternoon Sports Drive here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Jason Elmquist with you. We were planning on talking OSU baseball, which we'll get to at some point. OSU football is going to become the topic. As an hour ago, Chuba Hubbard made national headlines. I know that they were talking about on TV 31 and 1 there. We'll also be discussing this as well. Chuba's tweet here originally was a picture that was posted on Facebook by Captain Steve Barnes at Lake Texoma Striper Fishing Guide. So it's a picture of Coach Gundy. I don't know. Are those his? Yeah. Okay, those are his sons.
His middle and third. It's I believe the one on the far left was Gunner. Let me pull it back up. Yeah, Gunner on the far left, who technically graduated this fall or this spring from Stillwater High, and then the one in the middle would be his youngest Gage, who is either a freshman or will be a freshman this year.
Okay. So those are the ones in the picture with Coach Gundy. Kyle Boone tweeted this out, said Mike Gundy went fishing on Lake Texoma donning an OAN shirt. One American News Network, they're a far-right network, pro-Trump. I personally have never actually watched OAN. I've heard about it plenty of times, never watched it. Chuba Hubbard's tweet, he quoted it, the picture, and said, quote, "I will not stand for this. This is completely insensitive to everything going on in society, and it's unacceptable. I will not be doing anything with Oklahoma State until things change," end quote. That was sent out an hour ago. As I said, it is up to 26,000 likes on Twitter already. Plenty of support from teammates as well, backing him on this.
And might add, current and former teammates.
Current and former. And here's my thing. I immediately thought, you know what, this is going to be the next cancel culture thing. Okay, I appall cancel culture. I hate it. I think that it's something that.
So, are you saying you're trying to cancel culture? You're part of the problem, then.
Right? Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I just think it's too drastic. You can disagree with things, and Chuba obviously does. I just think that what we've lost along the way is the ability to have more dialogue, more open dialogue within each other. Now, I don't know if Chuba and Mike Gundy have talked about things like this before, and this was maybe like just a last straw thing for Chuba. I don't know.
Maybe.
I got to put this out there because I don't want people to think I'm just talking. I've never met Mike Gundy, never met Chuba Hubbard personally. Okay.
And here's something we also have to keep in mind is Gundy has also controlled the access to players and the availability of players, stuff like that. And while he has, and I'm saying, for years, not just recently, but you look at it and you have Gundy going out there and making the comments about OAN
back in, what was that, late March, early April, talking about OAN during his media teleconference that made national news for other reasons and whatnot. But that's the thing, is like, that's how he's able to get his message. Because remember, we talked about it for about 30 minutes. It was him just talking politics, essentially. Mm-hmm. Well, this is also a point in society where black people, black athletes are wanting change, and they're wanting their voice heard. And I get this argument, being made of, well, he shouldn't have gone to social media. Well, where else is he allowed to go besides go to his coach? Well, we've seen, especially of late, people of power squash anybody trying to talk to them, whether it's far up above or, in small police departments. We've seen that. So I understand his point of going to social media, because he's not allowed to talk to the media. He's not allowed to have an interview with anyone or come on our radio show, because Gundy doesn't permit it. So he's going to social media and voicing his opinion, which everyone's arguing, well, this is Gundy's opinion. Well, this is Chuba's opinion. We need to keep that in mind. And I think the thing is that all of us, especially us at this radio station, where all of us are white men, need to just stop and listen instead of instantly jump to opinions or criticize the means of which he's trying to get his message across.
I think social media is, I've said this for a long time, it's a fun house. I don't think it depicts anything really in real life. I think there's also a lot of people that would, and I get it. I get Chuba wants to hop on Twitter. He has a platform there to put it out there and everything. But he also knew this. I know this. I know that he knows this, that Twitter is a place where he will get plenty of support on this. There it just is. It's one of these things where you're going to get the likes, you're going to get the circulation. People are gonna call this out. Now, my issue here with it still is, he's talking Gundy here. He's allowed to have his own opinions. Okay, he can watch what he wants. He can wear what he wants. And it's kind of like I was talking about earlier with OAN and all that. Had he not brought it up, maybe in that press conference, and maybe this wouldn't be such a huge deal if this was one of those shirts. He said, "It's just one of the shirts I wore, and doesn't mean anything. Just something I wear to the lake or whatever." Maybe that would fix things. But the fact that there was a prior mention to it isn't going to help anything either. Looking at what Chuba says in the tweet, I won't be doing anything with Oklahoma State until things change. So what exactly needs to change is my question. Does that mean that Mike Gundy has to go before he does anything? Does that mean that Oklahoma State has to come out and condemn what Mike Gundy wore, what he believes? I don't know what that means. Does that mean, and that's my issue with it being on Twitter is, I want to know what he's talking about exactly. People call for, and we talked about this last week, people call for change all the time. But until, and again, I don't know if this has happened before, but until sit downs and dialogue is created and then you get your expression out there within each other, there's not a lot that can be changed simply from saying it. You got to have something to back up. What exactly does Chuba want to happen here? Right.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, maybe this is, and I know Tom made the comment earlier of, if he's Chuba Hubbard, he should be able to get Gundy right on the phone, but you never know. And maybe this was his, Chuba's attempt at, basically delivering a message to both Mike Gundy and Mike Holder of saying, hey, we need to come. Because here's the thing, we got to keep in mind, we're talking about all this. You remember we talked how great that video that came out last week that Chuba Hubbard apparently was behind, that Robert reported on? Was Mike Gundy in that video?
To my knowledge.
So maybe this is him saying, hey, that's the thing we don't know. Is maybe he's like, hey, you couldn't, whether he reached out or didn't want to reach out, it would be an interesting thing as well. But I mean, that was, and as impactful, and we talk about how important Mike Gundy is and how powerful Mike Gundy is. His presence in that video, I think, would have served an important message for Chuba Hubbard's as well. So, I mean, I don't know what he's saying by change. I think we can't assume whether it's he wants Gundy fired or whatnot. He didn't say that, but maybe the change is he wants, what was the technical word? Insensitive. Being able for Gundy to at least recognize, hey, there's a good portion of his player base that understands that while he watches that, he needs to understand that it's also, people look at that network as far right reaching. Far right reaching. I mean, they, on the spectrum of left and right, it's considered far more right than Fox News.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's the thing is, if he's, I get, again, I agree with everyone where it's his opinion to watch that and stuff like that. But if he's also not listening to his players, that's a problem. Because if they're saying, hey, you know what, you need to listen to us more than you need to listen to OAN, and he's not doing that, that's on him.
Yeah, and just like you, I don't know if he's had a chance to sit down, via conference, Zoom conference, or on the telephone, whatever, and address his team and talk about everything that's been going on. If he hasn't, that's something he probably needs to do. I mean, let's be honest. But if he has, and this is also the thing is we can't cancel dialogue. That's where we get in trouble. When we start censoring and canceling what other people view. And here's the thing, I'm not trying to sit here and just defend every single thing that Mike Gundy does, but I am going to, like you said, defend his right to wear what he wants, to watch what he wants. But the problem here is where he is and the position he's in. He is a head coach of a major football program, okay, in America, in today's world.
Yep.
So there has to be a part of you that I don't want to say knows better, maybe isn't the right thing, but you got to be maybe a little bit more aware. Again, to me, you can believe and say and do whatever you want. It's just like I called him out a little bit for it too during the COVID stuff.
Right.
Look, we have to be able to say the right things at the right times. I should that necessarily have to be the case if it means that you're going to be censored? No, but we have to also be aware of situations when we're saying things. Let's go to the phone line. You're on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Go ahead.
Well, you're exactly right. In this political climate, Mike needs to just stick to wearing his OSU football stuff. That would have never happened. But but Cuba needs to understand. And I'm far right wing Christian conservative, and I know a lot of black friends of mine that watch Fox News. Now, if that offends Cuba, I don't get it because, like I said, I've got good black friends that I've known for years that watch Fox News, and Fox News is about as far right as it can get. So, I mean, I don't know how this is going to play out. You guys might be able to figure it out, but I want to ask you this because I haven't had a chance to hear what your ideas are, but some of this stuff's going around. Before you get off today, would you try to address this Eyes of Texas deal that's going on down at the University of Texas? Because I've got family that live down there. They're confused. If you guys can shed some light on it for me, I sure would appreciate it. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we'll look into that and see exactly what that is.
Okay.
There. Yeah.
We can talk about it later.
Right.
But it will. I mean, it kind of talks. It's similar to what we're discussing right now. Apparently, New York Times has a story from a couple days ago saying that Texas football players have called on the university to drop a song steeped in racist history.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, the Eyes of Texas. I guess it was one song at minstrel shows. So that's apparently what that is that. Football players,
mm-hmm.
and I'm sure students as well are requesting them to not utilize that song, I guess, anymore.
Okay.
I'll look more into it during.
Yeah,
breaks,
we'll definitely look into it and address it as we go on here in the show. Again, appreciate that call. He kind of agreed. The caller did with what I was saying. And I said it back when this all happened again with coronavirus. You want to be able to express what you believe in. Whether that means saying it, wearing it, whatever. You have that right. We all know it. There's a time and a place for it, though, especially in today's climate. That's all I'm going to say. There just has to be, and then maybe that's just something that he hasn't adjusted to. I mean, I know that again, that network, not saying that network, I've never watched it personally, not saying that it's a racist network. I know that it's far right. But I will say this: let's think about if it were another network, okay? If it were CNN, would we be discussing this right now? No, we wouldn't. And should it be that way? No. But when you look on the spectrum of left and right politically, that's about where those two networks land. So to me, that's where we're missing is being able to have a conversation instead of having to immediately go, I disagree with what you say or think, therefore you should be done. That mindset to me needs to be eliminated.
And again, that's the thing is we don't know the layers to this.
Well, we don't.
Because it could be the fact that Chuba has discussed this and he sees his coach still wearing it. And it's like, okay, that's the last straw. I mean, we don't know. And that's, I think, the thing we need. Again, that's why I think, like I said just a little bit ago, a lot of us need to just stop and listen. Whether it's to Chuba, whether it's to anyone, that's why I was glad we had Mike Boynton on last Friday because I think that's the important thing, especially in the world of sports that we are in, is it is so diverse. Yet you look at our shows on this station, we're all white men. It's not very diverse, but we're talking sports, which is diverse. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's the thing is we have to understand as white men that just because we have an opinion of one thing doesn't mean that some other entity within sports doesn't have a different opinion.
Right, and everyone's allowed to have those opinions. That's what I love about it.
I think that's what people need to just calm down with Chuba because they're saying, well, Gundy needs to have his opinion. Is Chuba not having his opinion?
No, he absolutely is, and that's why I'm not getting on here and ripping Chuba. And I don't think anyone is should be just going straight after that. We should understand that this is a form of a conversation, but not in the way probably that it should go down.
Yeah, because I think the thing we got to keep in mind is while it started with Chuba, and that's what everyone's focusing on now, is there's a growing list of current and former players who are backing him, who are saying, we stand with you. Obviously you had Tevin Jenkins tweeted out as an O-line, we have your back. You've had, that's the thing is several former players who are now in the NFL who have come out in support of Chuba's comments as well. So, and I know some people may argue that some of these guys might have axe to grinds and whatnot, but let's point out that several of the original replies to Chuba's were guys who are currently on roster.
Right. And that's the issue that we haven't talked about yet, is because I'm afraid we're already seeing sides being taken. Because there's going to be some people that come to the side of Coach Gundy here too. And that's not good for any program.
Right.
If you're not going to split it up.
Because here's just a few of them right off the bat. Colby Harvell-Peel quote tweeted it saying, "We are more than athletes." Braden Johnson quote tweeted Chuba Hubbard saying, "I stand with you, my brother. I refuse to keep feeling the uncomfort. This is bigger than football." And that phrase, "I refuse to keep feeling the uncomfort," that also sparks the question, are you talking about as being a black man at Oklahoma State within this program? Where is the uncomfort? And that's why I think, again, a lot of us, whether you're here on radio or if you're an OSU fan, need to stop and listen to these people. And right now, because that's the thing. Right now, their only venue to talk about this is social media.
Yeah, I saw that. I kind of wondered as well what exactly that meant. Is there a history there that we don't know about? And, I want to do my part also to like you said, to kind of listen and understand. But at the same time, I'm also going to do my part as my job as well as to investigate, and see what we can dig up and find out. When you can balance that.
And that's the thing. Right now, the only thing we can dig up are these tweets from current and former players. Again, going on, Justice Hill, OSU Athletics and University need major change, 100% support, brother, quote tweeting Chuba. And then I know one person replied to him for wearing a network shirt, and Justice's response to that was, "You don't see everyday things," which again, then it brings up a lot of questions for us. AJ Green, who just left the program, quote tweeting Justice Hill's remarks saying, "Can't stay silent anymore, call a spade a spade." And here's the thing, we don't know, all of this is cryptic in a way. We don't know if they're talking about the program as in general, if they're talking about Gundy exclusively, because we just saw in Iowa them, they basically parted ways with their strength and conditioning coach because it was found out that he did make racist remarks and stuff like that. So I mean, again, the list of responses just goes on, and from current and former players, but there's nothing specific to say, okay, you're talking about this person or the entire program or the university as a whole. We don't know.
Yeah, we're not here to make dangerous assumptions, but we are here to break it down, and that's what we'll continue to do when we come back. Talking more about this bombshell tweet from Chuba Hubbard, as it has made plenty of national news already. I mean, it's basically broke Twitter. We'll talk about all that, and also later in the show, we will get into some more OSU football news that happened over the weekend. OSU baseball as well. NFL news, we'll try to get to some of that. The NBA, Major League Baseball, all with news coming out about season starting potentially and when and how. We'll try to get to as much as we can today. Again, we'll come back and read the tweet from Chuba Hubbard and break it down a little bit further. If you want to call in, give your thoughts, you can do so. 533-1051, 533-1020. We'll be right back with more here on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
It's been a too long time with no peace of mind. I'm ready for the times to get better. I've got to tell you, I've been racking my brain, hoping to find a way out. I've had enough of this.
Welcome back. Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. I said out there in the lobby for the show, has there been a more, what's the right word here, tumultuous type of time for OSU sports? I mean, basketball, the news on that was bad enough. Chuba Hubbard's tweet now in regards to his head coach. I mean, the passing of Eddie Sutton was unfortunate. Not like it wasn't completely unexpected, but unfortunate at the same time. It has been, and everything else is going on in the world in 2020. This has been an absolute crazy time here in Stillwater. Again, in case you're just joining us or haven't heard, Chuba Hubbard in regards to a picture posted by Kyle Boone, who, by the way, I'm kind of believing that he found a way to get famous here, trying to at least. Kyle Boone, speaking of, I think he saw something here and said, let me try to break this and see if I can get. And
I know he had also made comments that I think they didn't make as big of a noise with the fan base because Gundy's interaction made national media. But I mean, I think I remember somebody saying that he wrote a column basically kind of trashing. I've seen so many people saying that, it's just another hit job out or whatever on Gundy and whatnot. But at the same time, and again, you know my feelings on him specifically. Yeah. But I mean, because here's the thing, if somebody sent him that.
Well, and that's the thing is that the picture
did he actively go out searching for it?
Exactly. It's originally posted on a Facebook page from where he went fishing with the Lake Texoma striper fishing guide. So yeah, either he actively searched that out, found it, or it was leaked to him by somebody. Which wouldn't have been hard to do, if this was posted on this Facebook page.
Yeah, I was going to say, you
can go look it up right now.
Yes, it is still on that Facebook page.
And I'm sure the page is completely public, and everybody can see it.
Yeah, okay. It's got photos of families who have gone fishing over there for the past week. And yes, it was posted on last Wednesday, June 10th.
Yeah, and to what you were saying, I don't think that Mike Gundy is trying to be, intentionally insensitive here. Or also, I don't really think that the guy that posted that picture thought another thing about it, really. I just don't. He may have. This may have been a whole thing for him to be like, here, I'm going to make sure, and then this gets out there for whatever reason. But again, if you're just joining us, Chuba Hubbard's tweet to that says, quote, "I will not stand for this. This is completely insensitive to everything going on in society, and it's unacceptable. I will not be doing anything with Oklahoma State until things change," in all caps, end quote. And it has blown up on social media. It's sitting at 37,000 likes right now. A lot of people that I follow and/or have people that follow on Twitter have already run with it. And I got to say, from some of the replies, that there's a pretty heavily mixed reaction for a lot. I mean, at least the replies there's going to be. This is going to be one of those things.
Exactly. When it comes to politics, there's always a very solid line drawn.
And even for Twitter. I mean, this is not just a one-sided thing here. So the big deal that we've kind of talked about is some of the other players, coming out and supporting. And you mentioned a few of them there in the first segment. This is, and then that to me is where the issue is really going to balloon. Is if you have, the entire team eventually comes out and says, well, we got to do something here, then all of a sudden the pressure's on Oklahoma State and everybody else. It's like, well, what do we do? This is not the situation that they want to be in right now. Especially with, we haven't talked about it yet, but the news that a couple more players tested positive for the coronavirus since returning to campus for Stillwater at OSU for football. Malcolm Rodriguez and Gabe Simpson both announced on Twitter that they had tested positive. I think there were maybe a couple more that they haven't released them, obviously, or themselves. So we'll talk about more of that as well. But my point is, this is not what needs to be piled on, basically, right now. And again, I think that, can there be some positives that come from all this? Sure. But I also I have to reiterate that I don't like the idea, and I don't know if this is necessarily what Chuba's trying to do here, if he's actually trying to get the message out, or if he actively continues to come out and say, which he hasn't said yet, but if he continues to come out and say, we got to do something about Mike Gundy. Again, this is not stuff that we haven't heard anything extra that's gone on behind the scenes. This is just from what I'm reading here on Twitter, what he posted is, just because if it doesn't agree with what he believes in, it shouldn't necessarily have to be, we got to get rid of him. And the reason I say that is because we've seen that too many times on different levels with a lot. I mean, you could go down the list of people that have lost jobs, platforms, TV shows, radio show, anything because of something they said or wore, and a Twitter mob came after them. I mean, it just happens. But, and that's why I'm also split, because at the same time I'm saying, if you're in Gundy's shoes, you got to be a little more aware.
And here's, I hate the whole argument that people are making now and have made for years of, well, if it is with Gundy or within the program or whatever, if this is an actual issue, systemic issue, how has it not come out before now? Well, really, are we really taking that defense? Because the fact of the matter is, we've seen just within the past 5 years, other things come up where it's like, well, why didn't you come out? Because people are afraid of people in power. And what is Mike Gundy? He is a man in power. He is a man of power. And if you are someone who is trying to make a living in football, whether it's through university or trying to make it to where you get to the NFL, you almost have to kind of succumb to the man in power. So maybe they felt threatened, because that's the thing, during the Me Too movement and stuff like that, people were talking about how they felt threatened because it was people in power that were, sexually harassing them and stuff like that. That's what we have to keep in mind with this, is if you're going to take the argument, well, how couldn't it have come out before now? Well, because Gundy's a very powerful man.
Yeah, he is. There's no arguing that. I would have thought.
Again, the fact that we're seeing current and former players, again, both who have transferred out or who are now in the NFL, the whole, if we want to use, if there's smoke, maybe there's fire. Again, I don't know if it's him specifically, the program as a whole, but when you have a lot of people coming out in support of this or basically reinforcing what Chuba's saying, this isn't just a Chuba thing.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying there with all that. I just would think that if it were as bad, and I'm talking bad here, that something would have been leaked at some point or somebody would have accused, because that just doesn't fly. We've seen it, like you said, Iowa State.
But we've only seen it recently with the current we've social climate
seen
that we're
in. Before.
Yeah.
We've seen it before, but not at this rate. And it's kind of like I said, things pick up steam, and all of a sudden everyone starts feeling more comfortable with what's going on. But, and it's not like I'm not convinced that maybe, I don't know. But what I am saying is I would have to think that if it were as bad as maybe some of these players want to lead it on to be, or former players, we would have heard something by now.
Well, but at the same time, we also have to keep in mind that a lot of those guys were wanting or did go to the NFL. And what has the NFL had been doing for the previous 4 years up until this last weekend of saying, you know what, we're against kneeling it for this, we're against protesting. They essentially, a lot of at least over the past 4 to 5 years, if you went through a program, whether it's OSU or anywhere else, where you felt racism happening within your program, if you were a whistleblower, you're probably not only jeopardizing yourself within your own program, but your NFL aspects, because they literally just saw it happen with Kaepernick.
Right, and maybe
so I think that's the thing we have to keep in mind is there's and that's been I think, part of the problem, not just within sports, but within why there's a social justice movement, is the fact that black people have felt that their voice has never been heard, and when it has been heard, people have always tried to stomp it down or found a way to muzzle them.
And maybe it hasn't been, necessarily just all players, but I think Gundy's been around for a long time. The hundreds of people that have been through and interactions, coaches, players, staff, whatever. If this was a constant thing, I think there would be somebody who would be willing to stand up for it. That's just what I think. That's what I would hope.
But then that leads to the question of with Chuba, is he saying a change needs to be happening throughout the entire program then? Because if it is just specifically Gundy, why weren't these other coaches coming to their defense? Or and that's the thing. As I said in the first segment, we can't answer these questions because these players aren't being given access because Gundy controls the message.
And here's the thing: if there is something more to this, does this prompt somebody to officially come out and say it? I don't know. But that's the thing: we aren't going to just assume one thing or the other because we just don't know the truth behind all of that. But what we do know is what Chuba Hubbard said. And the big deal is that what's making so much national news here is that he said he won't do anything with Oklahoma State until things change. And when you say anything, does that mean no voluntary workouts? No. Does that mean me not even showing back up to the campus?
Because voluntary workouts were supposed to start today.
Yeah, they were. That's right. We didn't get to that.
Yeah.
Today, Big 12 athletes can start voluntary workouts.
And OSU was planning on.
Yes, they
as
were.
As far as we knew, we're starting today.
And I think they have. I think they did. Did Chuba participate in that? Who knows? And again, does that mean we have to remind players or fans and everyone that listens as well that with these players, they're not being locked down on campus. They're being told, you should be safe and all this as well, but they're free to go wherever and do whatever. So that could very well mean that he doesn't show back up. I don't know. We just don't know what that means. There's a report, tomorrow or whatever, and they say, well, he's on campus and he's working out. Then maybe that calms some people down. But if there's report, well, he hasn't showed up. He's sticking to what he said on Twitter, and all of a sudden now you've got more fuel to the fire here. Then that's what people are going to ask. Well, what does that mean for Chuba then? Because if Oklahoma State doesn't do anything, I still don't know exactly what they're supposed to do, does he get out of here? Does it become that drastic that he goes to another school? I don't know. I don't know where how deep this can really get. It's obviously already caused major rifts on social media, and it's made national news so far. Can it get worse? Yeah, it could. Could it get better? Could it be fixed in a way? Probably. I just don't know exactly what, Mike Gundy's next step is going to be, because to me, he can either take two avenues here. He can go down one that says, well, I stand by what I wore, I stand by what I watch and what I believe in. That's my opinions. If you have a problem, fine, you have a problem. You'll go somewhere else. Yeah. Or he can come out and say, I'm sorry that I offended people. Wasn't my intention to be insensitive. If I came off that way, let's all come together and move past this. Those are two different roads. I don't think there's a middle. I think it's left or right here. And whichever one he picks could deem the future of OSU football for all I know at this point.
Yeah. Because I think we're definitely at a crossroads here because, because I've seen some people, some of the replies to Chuba Chuba needs to understand that the program is more than just himself. And I'm like, well, then by that same logic, Gundy needs to realize that it's more than just himself by wearing an OAN and talking politics when he was supposed to be talking about his program for the first 20 minutes. So, that's the thing we need to keep in mind is everyone's coming up with excuses of why Chuba should have done something differently. But again, we all have a voice, and I literally, and that's the funny thing I find in all this is people attacking him. I literally wrote a column from the protest that I went to that I covered for the newspaper, and I concluded it with, if you have a voice, use it. And that's exactly what Chuba's doing. So I can't fault him because he's doing exactly what I said needed to be done when it comes to creating social justice here in the country.
Let's go back to the phone lines. You're on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Hey, I had a quick question. How did all this come up? Did Kyle Boone go on the fishing guide
webpage and then pull it, then ask Chuba for a comment?
No, well, it was a case where, again, we don't know if Kyle found it, if somebody leaked it to him, whatever. But he did tweet out the screenshot of the photo and whatnot of him wearing the T-shirt, and he didn't. I don't think he tagged anyone in it.
No, it was just.
But Chuba saw it and quote tweeted it.
It was just originally posted by that Facebook page with the guide there, and like Jason said, Kyle screenshotted that, or either it was sent to him or he did it himself and posted it. Didn't tag anybody. Just said that Mike Gundy is donning an OAN shirt.
Well, he was looking for some kind of reaction.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's what I said earlier, is that this was a perfect opportunity for Kyle to gain, to get his name out there. You know, for all I know, in two days he could be working for Bleacher Report. You know,
well,
I mean, it really
technically I think he's a part timer at
CBS.
CBS Sports,
he could be going somewhere else for all I know. You know, so
yeah. Well, I mean, I support Gundy, but also I love Chuba. And and I just trying to understand what they've gone through, but it's hard to even have an opinion really, because it's just my opinion. Like you guys said, everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
Yeah.
I wish there was some common ground.
Yeah,
everybody either jumps off the deep end or just waits in the shallow pool.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's where we've become lost. Is not being able to have a middle ground discussion. There has to be. You have to pick sides at a time where we desperately need to come together and either listen to each other, but also, even if we disagree, understand why we disagree.
Right, exactly. I mean, my dad, when I was growing up, that's my dad would always, take the other side for a change, figure out what kind of common ground everybody has, and we've lost that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, everybody's, bad about something, and I know things need to change, but, it's easier for me to say than some other people, but I just like to find out what Chuba's talking about change, and but you could see this thing with Gundy coming around, just the snowflake and everything else. You knew it was just a matter of time with Gundy.
Well, we have to keep in mind as well that when he talked to the media a couple months ago, when he referred to the COVID-19, he referred to it as the Chinese virus, which a lot of people consider to be xenophobic, basically kind of attacking the Chinese race. So I think like you said, there have certainly been signs and make people wonder, okay, is he a far right? I don't want to say white supremacist, but I mean that's what I think that's the big thing that Gundy needs to be aware of, maybe at the very least, and maybe that's what Chuba's saying by being insensitive, is a lot of people associate white supremacy with OAN Network. Whether that's right or wrong, that's everyone's opinion. But I'm just saying, in the national scope, that is what a majority of people view it. Right.
I didn't even know it even existed till all this came up. I mean,
same.
It's not something I even care to even watch.
Mm-hmm.
So, but all right, guys, you're doing a great job. We'll talk to you later.
Hey, thanks for the phone call. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's I mean, he's right. That's the best part about, if anyone out there wants to learn how to take a stance on something, I encourage to practice viewing it from both sides and then forming an opinion.
No, I'm glad he brought that up, because that was actually something I've been doing for 20 years now. I remember back in high school, just playing devil's advocate with classmates. Like I wasn't necessarily taking a stand, but I was trying to, because the one I remember going back to my senior year of high school, a member of the band was saying, hey, we need, the school should pay for our new uniforms for the band, because they get new uniforms for the football team every year. And I replied with, how much money does the band make? How much money does the football team make, though, when they have, well, people come out to see the band, too. I was like, do they? Yeah. I mean, maybe a couple parents do, but it's like, you've got, that's the thing is so many people aren't willing to look at the other side of things. And the caller brings up a good point. If you can start doing that, maybe you can see both sides of things and understand and hopefully come to maybe a common ground or better understanding of both sides.
Right. And it doesn't mean you have to, change, what side you believe in or whatever. But what it does mean is it can give you a better perspective. Yeah. If you understand everything that surrounds an issue instead of half of it, then all of a sudden, what you say seems to hold a little bit more weight.
A more educated society will always benefit society.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, we will look into the news surrounding a couple more players announcing they tested positive for the coronavirus. On OSU's football team, there's been a number of schools that have released information that, yes, we've had some. Houston, we'll talk about them as well. Theirs is actually a little bit more drastic than other places. So we'll discuss all of that. I think Tom Dorado is going to join us in the second hour a little bit, I believe, to talk OSU baseball. Some players announcing that, hey, they are exercising that extra year of eligibility and coming on back. We'll tell you about all of that still to come here on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
I don't want to wait for our life to be over. But you take it how you left it. This is give and take. Take your side, take me under. I want you, but you show me what.
Welcome back, Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Jason Elmquist with you as we wrap up hour number one. Let's go straight to the phone lines. You're on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Go ahead.
Hey, this is Mark, and can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, we got you.
Okay. I just wanted to get on this discussion.
Yeah.
I come from a perspective of, I coached 5A sports for a while as a baseball and softball coach at a very disadvantaged school, very low income. I'm an older white male in my 50s. And about 15 years ago, I had to go through this whole process that the whole country's going through. I had grown up upper middle class. I had no idea what being disadvantaged really meant. I owned a couple of businesses before I got into education where I hired low income folks, and that was my first experience with that. And then when I got into education and taught and coached, I coached at a school. It's probably the most diverse school in Oklahoma. Heavily Hispanic, heavily African American, small population of white kids still, heavy Asian population, heavy real Native American. I got my Native American card, but I look like my white, German, Irish mother, not my French Native American dad. And these kids had jet black hair, names like Black Crow, stuff like that. And walking into those locker rooms and those practices every day and confronting those kids, and those kids asking me tough questions 15 years ago, why certain things are, I had to go through that myself. And so it'll be the athletes that'll lead this, because in a locker room, when you have white kids and black kids and Hispanic kids that have to work together for a common goal, you throw all that other stuff out the window. And so coaches are going to lead this. Athletes are going to lead this, particularly the white coaches and the white athletes, to get us all on the same page for upper middle class and middle class white folks to really understand what the issues are. And Mike has done this to himself. He's created his own S-pile, and he stepped right in it by being the most political coach in America, by this whole snowflake stuff and the Chinese stuff and all that. And now wearing the OAN, which everyone that knows, if you pay attention to politics, where those guys stand and what they're doing. And Chuba is a Canadian. He is not a Southerner. This is a southern part of the country. And when Mike introduces politics like that, it's going to create a rift when you've got a kid that's not from this culture down here. And you're seeing it in politics. Trump has split this country. That was his strategy, to split it. He split it off into a southern base with a few Midwestern states. Those Midwestern states are dramatically turning on him as they watch the chaos in the country. Not only the black versus white, all that stuff, but this whole COVID thing. And that's where Mike lost me. I've been a long time supporter of the program. I have a degree from Oklahoma State. I met my wife there, had my first child there. My oldest son has a undergrad as well as a master's degree from Oklahoma State. I love Oklahoma State. I've had season tickets to basketball since Boynton showed up. I love Boynton. I have season tickets currently for baseball. We'll be in that new stadium. But when I saw what Mike did in that conference over COVID, no more. I'll never support that dude again. And I hate to say this, gentlemen, because I don't like the University of Oklahoma, but they've handled it so much more prudently, respectfully, cautiously. I don't know what all the right terms are for the word, but they've handled it so much better than Mike did. Mike tried to turn it into a political issue, a hard-ass issue, and that's what these right-wingers have tried to do. They made politics about hard-ass issues, and you're either, going to be a hard-ass, or if you're not a hard-ass, you're a snowflake. And I think Chuba's a smart kid. He's a sensitive kid. And for someone to say, someone like Chuba who wants to stand up for his opinions as some kind of snowflake, well, F you, man. Because these kids are tough. They're just as tough as you are. And so I support people that want to bring people together. And I don't think Mike's doing that. And so from now on, I will not support him until he figures out how to do that. And so he's got to take the politics out of what he's doing. He's got to do it. And that's my opinion. Anyway, appreciate your time, gentlemen.
Hey, thanks for that.
Appreciate the phone call.
Yeah, we appreciate you, those guys like that coming on, and that's what I love about our shows. You can come on, express your opinion here, and we're going to talk about it. The thing is,
and like we've been asking, is
right.
for both sides.
We want to hear from it, so that's why I appreciate that. And it's kind of like he brought up. He's been in that situation, and that's to me and I've said it before. What makes sports so beautiful is that a lot of the time, in most situations, you have a lot of different races coming together for one common goal. And then I've said it before, people would be like, that's such a simplistic way to look at things. But yes, imagine if that were the same goal in life, everybody coming together to achieve something, regardless of skin color, sexual orientation, gender, whatever. And kind of what he's saying there, I agree. I mean, with some of it, I've been on the same train where, part of me says, hey, Gundy can say what he wants because he has a right. But in the position he's in, and from where I've came from and learning how to, going through a bunch of and it brings back a lot of my PR training and stuff, where when you're in positions like that, positions of power, positions with platforms, you just gotta read. Yeah. You gotta read the situation. You gotta read society and be able to respond appropriately, even if it doesn't necessarily mean what you believe deep down. You have to do it,
because if there's anyone in Stillwater who knows that a message can be delivered by wearing a certain T-shirt, it would be Mike Gundy, because he literally, it's been about 6 years ago now, I think, fired a contractor who was working on his house for wearing an OU T-shirt. Wow. So, I mean, if there's anyone who knows that you can make a statement with just wearing a T-shirt, it would be Mike. I would assume it would be Mike Gundy, because he's literally fired somebody over them wearing a T-shirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he brings up OU. I think, and here's the thing: I respect people that are willing, and that's why there's a part of me that, of course, still has respect for Mike Gundy, because he isn't afraid to give his opinions on things. I respect that. But again, there's a line you have to draw, and that's why when he brought up OU, Lincoln Riley has expressed opinions, but he hasn't done it in a divisional way. And I think that's kind of the line that not just Mike Gundy, but some other people, in positions like that have to learn to toe. They might not want to, and it might be uncomfortable. But I'm talking here, if I'm talking job security, I'm talking respect, all of that, reputation, that will follow you forever. That's where you have to be able to find a common ground there. And some people just either won't or just don't know how.
And again, I know we're looking at the entire scope of Chuba's comment, but I think the biggest thing we need to point out is the fact that he says insensitive. So even if he's not necessarily saying that Gundy is being racist, if he's not accusing him of that, he's still saying that, hey, you're complacent, because you know what this network stands for and how us as black players on your team view that network right now. You are being insensitive to that knowledge. So even if at the very least that's what it comes off to me. I don't know if I can read into it where he's accusing him of racism, but at the very least I can read that as what he's saying at the very least.
Yeah, we got to make sure and point that out, that he did not say the actual word racist, racism, any of that. It was insensitive is what he said. So you take that as to what you believe it could mean. It could be many things, but it's your opinion on that one, your own thoughts. When we come back, I think Tom Dorado is going to join us at some point here in the second hour to talk a little bit of OSU baseball. Again, if you have questions, comments about the Chuba Hubbard tweet, then feel free to call in. 533-1051, 533-1020. Phone lines are open. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about whatever. Got something else on your mind, OSU related, nationally sports related? Fire it at us. We are here to serve. Hour number 2 coming up next on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Yeah, that's what I've been on. Yeah, that's what I've been on. Yeah, that's what I've been on. Yeah, that's what.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of the Afternoon Sports Drive here on a Monday. Patrick Wheeler and Jason Elmquist along with you. It's been an interesting day in Stillwater, to say the least. Started off with the news that a couple more OSU football players announced on Twitter that they did, in fact, test positive for the coronavirus. I'm not trying to play it up like that's a huge deal, because as we know now, that all these two as well, Gabe Simpson and Malcolm Rodriguez, both said they were asymptomatic, and so was Amon, that also said it as well. So yeah, it's important. The good thing about it is that you can get those, and that's why I appreciate those guys that come out and say, hey, we were the ones that tested positive. That way, like we've had people say, we want to know the identities of these people, and you don't have the right to know, but if they feel you do, then you do. And I appreciate that from them, because that does help public knowledge.
And it kind of makes you wonder if it's a case where those are the only 3, or if there are some other ones, and which would make this more than the 3 that we were initially told by OSU. Yeah. So that's the interesting thing coming out of those, is we don't know if that makes it the original 3, or if these are 2 more that were from another wave.
Let's go back to the phone lines. You're on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Go ahead.
Well, guys, does this feel like it's spinning out of control?
Not yet. I think that what furthers it maybe to that point is that you're getting a lot of players as well that are still on the team, current players, basically coming to Chuba's aid, which you understand. So if that continues, I think you have a bit more of an issue where you're going to have Gundy address all of them at some point here and try to fix things. So I mean, is it growing? Yeah, probably a little bit, but you can thank Twitter for that.
At what point would you say that it is spinning out of control?
I mean, that's going to be the thing is if we continue to see more players kind of come out and say kind of what they've said. Well, and there's been some hints to, this is...
If there's allegations.
Yeah, allegations. That's kind of what I'm thinking. They've heard this stuff before. We actually see solid accusations of things that Gundy or anyone else has said. Then all of a sudden that turns into, well, now we got to do an investigation, and then all of a sudden that's where you got something spiraling out of control.
Well, do you take your star offensive player and your star defensive player, do you kick them off the team? I mean, we've all seen the movies about mutinies. You've seen Mutiny on the Bounty, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, your 2 stars are mutiny right now, saying they're not going to participate in anything else. I mean, that's pretty much a dead end, right?
Well, I don't think you kick them off the team. Now, I have said earlier, and I still believe this is the case, that Gundy kind of has those 2 roads here where he can basically say, well, I can do and say what I want. If you don't like it, then you have the right to go. Or he can say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be insensitive. Let's work and fix this and stay. So it's going to be, I don't think there's going to be like this mass kick everybody off the team or kick those guys off the team or Chuba or whatever. It's going to be let the chips fall where they may with whatever way Gundy chooses to respond to this.
Well, who do you guys personally side with?
That's the thing. I'm not here to pick sides. I've said it, and I think that I've kind of made it pretty clear with this, is that I support Gundy's opinion his ability to have an opinion, I'll say. I support that he has that right. I also support that Chuba has the right to come out and disagree with it. So I get both sides. Do I necessarily agree that Twitter's the right place to go straight with it? No. I know Jason's kind of talked about that maybe the best platform for Chuba. So I'm not going to sit here and just and try to pick a side, because it's not really to my place to actually do that. But it is my place to say that I back the First Amendment. Yeah. I back the right to say what you believe is true. And I also back the idea of, and I've said this before as well, just because somebody says something that you disagree with doesn't mean that person should be, just effectively canceled or career ended or anything like that as well.
Yeah, and again, like you just said, I was going to say what I was going to say is the fact that I stand on the side of the First Amendment. Both gentlemen technically had the right to say what they said, contrary to what anyone wants to say. If you want to badmouth Gundy or if you want to badmouth Chuba, they had that right, and that's, I think, the important thing that during all of what's going on is that that we don't lose track of that. We don't lose track, and I think that's the problem I think that Chuba's bringing up, is that a lot of in the black community don't believe that their First Amendment rights are being heard. And so I think that's why you see him and as I mentioned earlier, why I think he's going to social media is because he doesn't have any other platform right now. He can't do a teleconference like Mike Gundy did, because Mike Gundy controls the access to the players and the message that comes out. So thus he went to social media.
Okay, but here's the problem we have. All right. Mike Gundy has the First Amendment. Chuba Hubbard, Amen, have the First Amendment. That's great. Hey, I'm a big fan of the First Amendment. I like everybody, can talk their stuff. But a football team is not a democracy, guys. It's not a democracy. Okay?
That's fair. Yeah,
somebody wins and somebody loses when it comes to the First Amendment, right?
But look at it this way though as well. I know we're looking at it from the sports angle. But what do you think? Who is Chuba Hubbard when he's not on the football field? Is he not a human being?
Oh no, that's true. What I'm saying is they've all got their rights to their opinions. I mean, Mike Gundy can spout his right wing stuff, wear his OAN shirt, whatever. Chuba and Amen I love it that they're talking out too, that they're not comfortable with it. But eventually somebody has to lose. It's not a democracy. So who loses in this? Well, I mean, when you're in charge of something, when you're the leader, when you're the captain, the general, when you're the general, okay, and you have a mutiny, something's got to give.
Well,
and when your two-star football players are just, it's outright mutiny. And don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming the football players because I kind of support what they're saying. But something's got to give.
Yeah, and what's going to give is, and I truly believe this, it's going to come down to a response from Gundy. I mean, if the response isn't what Oklahoma State likes, then they have the ability to get rid of him. So if it comes down to that drastic of a measure, then all of a sudden we've got a much bigger problem, because you don't think that wouldn't create some backlash, because it would. So I think it's all going to be based off of what he comes back with. If he comes back with if he's advised, let's say it this way, if he's advised to come back with, hey, my bad, let's all get together here and discuss this and see how we can move forward, then all of a sudden I think you have a different mindset. If it's like I said earlier, well, it's what I believe in, and I'm going to continue to make sure everybody knows what I believe, and I don't care what everybody thinks, then we might be talking about a change in personnel, for all we know, a change in personnel on the field, for all we know as well.
Well, here's the problem I have, though. He's already done that already. The coach, Mike Gundy, Coach Gundy's already done that once, right? I mean, after he held that press conference, they had to do damage control, right?
Right.
Are we going to do that again? Is this round 2?
Yeah.
Of damage control?
And that's the thing, is if Oklahoma State feels that way too, and they come out and say, well, that was it, that was strike 3 or whatever, then that's the decision. But I don't see that going over very well with response from Gundy. I think he comes back and says, you can't fire me for my First Amendment, exercising my First Amendment right.
Right.
Is he trying to get fired? I mean, that's my question. Is he trying to get fired?
That's what brings me back to the discussion of you just have to know where you are in your position on your platform and how to respond, how to act. I mean, I get that you want to make sure everyone, it's human nature to have everyone want to believe or understand what you believe, right? Like it's human nature. It's like, I stand for this and I want you to know that. Well, when you're in a situation,
did the Tennessee job come open again, guys?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, when you're in a situation, you have to know where to draw the line. I just don't believe that either Gundy doesn't want to draw the line, or he just doesn't know how. I don't know. It could be either one.
What I don't understand is situational awareness. You heard that thing, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what
you have got to have situational awareness.
And
you cannot be doing this stuff when you're on a national platform. You're making $5 million a year. You cannot do that.
And again, that's why I mentioned that's kind of what Hubbard, from my view, is kind of looking at when he says insensitive, and maybe that's essentially what he's pointing out is the lack of just understanding the situation that is currently going on globally right now.
I mean, it's national news now. I mean, this is not local Stillwater news. This is national news now.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you've got the controversy with players kneeling in the NFL, and now you've got this, and it goes national. You know, I don't get it. I don't get it, guys. I mean, why can't you just coach football? Why do you...
Well, and I get the frustration. The thing you have to understand is there has to be this need for some people to make sure everybody knows where they stand. I just think that's the case. And I truly believe that's human nature for a lot of us, especially in times like these. If you agree or disagree with what's going on, you want that opinion to be known. Whether it matters in some cases or not, you still want it to be heard. It makes you feel good as a human being.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just confused, man. I don't get it, guys. I really don't. I mean, come on, man. Just coach football. I mean, don't play politics in this stuff right now. The spotlight is on everything. You have got to have some situational awareness. And when you get snapped in pictures, you think they're just innocent pictures. They're not. There's no innocent pictures anymore. There's no innocent video anymore. It's all right there.
If
and the minute it's snapped, it's worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's on the internet, somebody is eventually going to find it. Whether it's not for good or bad, that's just how the internet works.
And that's why it blows my mind that we still have people at every level. But a lot of them, I will say this, a lot of them are of a different generation, okay, an older generation, that don't seem to understand that when things like that, they either don't understand social media or they don't understand how technology works anymore. Because just like you said, and it reminded me of the George Floyd case. That guy murdered a guy knowing, he had to have known. People are going to be sitting there videotaping it. It's like, how in the world and why in the world? Same thing, I mean, when we see something like this, you're like, you just got to know better.
Well, with the Louisville PD, where they released their report from that shooting of Breonna Taylor, where it said that there were no injuries involved, and it's like, you shot a woman 8 times. How are you able to say that there were no injuries?
Well, guys, just to give you a little background, you're talking about it from a different generation. Yeah. I'm from Coach Gundy's generation. I graduated high school the same year that Coach Gundy did, and not very far away from where Coach Gundy was at Midwest City. Okay? If I can realize, as being from the same time, same age as Coach Gundy, if I can realize that, why can't the coach of a major football program understand that?
Yeah,
and not have a mutiny by the star players. How do you get past this? I mean, how do you go into a meeting room? How do you get in the locker room? How do you get in a meeting room? Okay, after this is out now, how do you get in the same meeting room and look at each other? How is that possible?
Yeah, the only way that this is just how it is. I mean, and for Chuba maybe to be satisfied or whatever, the only response that he would be satisfied with is this heartfelt apology. And I'm talking, one that he comes out on social media and makes or whatever. I just don't know if anything else would fly. Are you going to be able to, if Chuba sticks around or whatever, are you going to be able to have that camaraderie on the team anymore, the ability to play, coach to player, to communicate like you need to as a football team? I don't know.
Well, I can understand it if Coach Gundy came out and gave an apology. Okay, tomorrow. All right, for whatever, for what he did, the shirt or whatever, and this going national. How does that ring true after you just did that, 3-4 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I'm just confused. You're set up to have a whale of a football team this year if we have a season. Let's preface it, guys. Let's say if we have a season, because with the Cowboys and the Texans coming out with positives, and now these more positives coming up here and all over the country. If we have a season, okay, set up to have one whale of a season. I mean, we really were. We've got the tools in place. Okay, if we get good quarterback play, we got the tools this year.
Yeah,
but you can't keep having this stuff. You can't keep having diversions like this where your head coach has to keep coming out and apologizing for stuff. I mean, something's got to give. Like I said earlier, a football team's not a democracy. It's just not. Something's got to give.
Hey, thanks for your call and from the frustrations. I completely understand it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Appreciate the phone call.
Yeah, it's. He brings up, I think, what a lot of people are probably feeling is like, we don't want to go through something like this in OSU football. I will say to the last response, I still firmly 100% believe we're going to have a football season. I don't think that's really in question. The thing's going to be, can Chuba come around? Can Gundy come around? Can they meet in the middle? And can we go forward with what, like you said, could be a pretty good season if everything works out like it should be? Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't know. I'm perplexed like the caller as well. Again, I think that's the biggest thing is just the social awareness of the time. And again, what a lot of people associate OAN is the thing that Gundy's, when you're coming out saying that you're trying to support your black athletes and the current social injustices going on, and then where that it does come off as insensitive. I can see that argument. So we need to take a break. When we come back,
let me. I've been listening to you guys for the last.
Okay. No, I'm going to pull like a caller. You had your say on Casey's.
Well, let me tell you
on Casey's show. We need
to
take a break.
You guys,
you're in here for baseball.
You just completely lose sight of the fact that while everybody has a right to say what they think, and that's the beauty of being in the United States. Hubbard, unless he's come out with something since then, has he? I don't know.
No.
Okay. You had every right to take these things to Gundy a week ago, just a week ago.
And here's the thing: we don't know if he already has.
Well, if he had, then why would he come out with this? He thinks he's getting stonewalled by Gundy? Is that what he's leaving?
We don't know. That's the thing. We don't know.
I think it's dangerous to drop this out here like he did, even though he has the right to do it, without following up. Oh, incidentally, the reason I'm not going to do anything else for Oklahoma State anymore is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and not just leave it out there with the implication that Gundy and everybody is a racist in this program.
Well, and that's what I said.
That's not fair.
Did he use that word though in the text? He said insensitive.
He said all of a sudden, he is not going to do anything else for Oklahoma State until this is done.
Yeah, until the change could be...
What change are we talking about here?
Well, Gundy being insensitive.
And he said Gundy's insensitive.
Yeah.
Let me pull it back up for you, Tom.
That's not the tweet I heard.
The tweet said, okay, as he's doing that, the tweet said it was insensitive. But what What I said earlier was I don't know what he's talking about when he says that things need to change. I don't know exactly what that means.
Well, why don't you say it?
And again, yeah, and if he hadn't said anything, this is my thing. If he hadn't said anything to Gundy before, if he had an issue with everything that Gundy says or does whatever, and they haven't talked before, and this is when he immediately went to social media, I don't agree with that part. But because to me, that's where it cuts off the dialogue that needs to be having.
Yeah, we talk about conversations that need to be taking place in this day of unrest. And well, how about a simple conversation? You don't like what's going on in the program. You don't like what your coach is doing. How about having a conversation with him?
The direct tweet from Chuba was, "I will not stand for this. This is completely insensitive to everything going on in society, and it's unacceptable. I will not be doing anything with Oklahoma State until things change." No word of racism there. He said he comes off as completely insensitive. And again, who's to say right now that Gundy's not on the lake and doesn't have his phone, so that's why he couldn't message him? I mean, we don't know. That's the thing. We need to stop assuming anything. Well, all we can do is based off of the facts, and the fact is, Chuba said that in response to Gundy wearing a T-shirt. Whether or not he's saying that Gundy's racist, we don't know. He doesn't say that though. He does not say that.
So what would you think he's talking about? He didn't like the food that's being served? I mean, come to grips. You know what he's getting at right here.
We need to take a break. We need to get to baseball with Tom. That's why you're here. So we need to take a break.
You know what he's getting at, but you're defending tweets that have no basis at all unless you come out and list the reasons that you're upset. And if you can't do that, then you have no reason to put a tweet out like that. None. Unless you want to have the sack to say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the reasons I don't like what's going on, then you don't need to put a tweet out like that.
And then why does Gundy need to spend 20 minutes on a press conference just talk about politics? Isn't he just a football coach?
With that if you'd like. That's fine. I mean, I don't know why he does it either, quite frankly.
And that's maybe what this part of this is stemming from. And maybe this is all coming to a head. And again, I understand what you're saying is you need to come out with more. But at the same time, if you're as frustrated as Chuba Hubbard and people that I've talked to in this community, I can understand just wanting to say something and then just backing away because you don't want to maybe say something you do ultimately regret.
Have you sensed this frustration since Hubbard has been here?
I don't know. I don't get interaction with him like a lot of other people do.
The interactions you've had.
No, because I've never, to be honest, I've never asked Chuba Hubbard about Mike Gundy. You know who I've talked to him about? Guys like, his running backs coach or the teammates around him. I've never asked him about Gundy.
Right, and that's what I've said, and we'll get to our break.
Or about racism, because again, this has been an issue. Racism has been an issue, and I'm not saying right now with OXU. I'm saying it's been a global issue. Racism is a global issue. We had this conversation before the current protests going on.
Yeah,
he and I had this conversation.
That's what we have to keep in mind is that we don't know if there's been this back and forth between Chuba and Gundy, that they've tried to talk about these things before, and this goes against what they talked about, and maybe that's why he goes out on Twitter and says this. Or is this a first-time thing for him, and maybe it was too much, and he goes out on Twitter and makes a statement, which, if that's the case, I don't agree with doing it that way. So there's different layers you have to look at it here. It's easy to assume things. That's why I said I came on here. I don't want to wrongly assume anything. I want to get more facts about it, and that's why I hope in these next few days we do get some development here and can go based off that as well. When we come back, we'll talk OSU baseball, OSU football a little bit more as well. We'll probably go straight into actually some more news. I think Tom's in here to talk baseball as well as Major League Baseball. I actually got an update while we're sitting here, by the way. Another update that Rob Manfred said that now he's not as confident that there will be a season. If you can believe it, it is actually true. I'm not making that up. Well, we'll talk about all that still coming up here on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
She like my futuristic sounds in the new spaceship. Futuristic if a Philip cake. She never need a man, she what a man need. So I keep on falling for her daily. We was at Coachella going crazy. Stack a couple M's like I was shady. Now I'm in Tribeca like I'm Jay-Z. Rockin' Sorayama like he pay me. I just signed a new deal with
Welcome back to the Afternoon Sports Drive here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Monday. Been a crazy Monday. Already starting the week off. So we talked about the entire show so far.
It'd be interesting to see what comes up of this.
The development is what we're going to watch. You know, it could happen tomorrow.
And I don't know if people want Gundy to make a big statement, whatever. But when you bring something like this up as a student athlete, and you've seen it happen, they got pretty much the administration of Missouri run out a couple of years ago at the University of Missouri because of, quote, demands and things they didn't think were right. Now, don't question, there are not things right in this world. I mean, you'd have to be completely naive to think that everything's just hunky-dory and nothing is right. But there are proper ways to go through it. And I've heard some of my African-American friends, even some we've had on the air, say, this is the way to do it. You know, they haven't heard us. Okay, they haven't heard us. But in this case, if Gundy were, and he didn't say he was a racist, but believe me, he could have mentioned things in his tweet a little less caustic than he did, because he's leaving the impression that because he wears that T-shirt that he's a racist and he's against us. He's against.
Okay, I think you're reading it different than I am, because I literally, he says insensitive to the situation, to the current state of our society.
So he's saying Gundy is not on board with everybody.
No, he is saying that he's not aware. He's saying, in my mind, from reading it, that Gundy's not aware of what's actually going on.
He's a head coach with what, 85% of his players
that doesn't mean
are African American?
Upstairs that he actually understands what truly is going on.
Now you're making an assumption there.
But that's the thing, is like you said, we don't know specifically what he's saying, but you can't say instantly that Chuba's accusing him of racism. He's not saying that. He did not say that anywhere in the tweet. Or in my mind, leave it to where he thinks it.
Well,
he's saying that he's insensitive to the situation.
And if he has that problem, he should have gone to somebody with it.
Let's go back to the phone lines. You're on the afternoon sports drive. Go ahead.
Okay, so maybe I didn't read or see everything that has been sent out there, but the one thing that I did read was Chuba's quote, and it goes back, and I know you guys have said this, but it really falls back on him, is what change are you talking about? What changes are you talking about at Oklahoma State University?
Yeah, that's what I've said a couple of times is, you know, that's what I want to see next is exactly what he means by that. I think Tom feels the same way, Jason too, about, you know, what exactly needs to change. And that's what I kind of detailed out. You know, does that mean that Oklahoma State has to come out and give this big statement about they don't agree with Gundy? Or does that mean that Mike Gundy has to come out and say, well, I've been wrong about things? I don't know. I have no idea what that means. Also, I don't know necessarily what it means that he says, I'm not going to do anything until it happens. Does that mean he's not going to show back up for voluntary workouts? Does that mean he's not going to show up for the start of the season? Does that mean he leaves? I mean, there's so many questions about what exactly he's talking about in that tweet.
Well, and I think that, you know, Coach Gundy I think he'll eventually sit down with him and ask him that question. Okay, you know, what do you want to see changed? And if he's offended by something that Coach has said or something that Coach has done, I think that Coach Gundy can come back and say, you know, I'm a man, I'm over 50 now. Look at my 50 years behind me and show me where I have said or done something that is considered, you know, racist or whatever. And I don't think you're going to find anything. So I think that when you look at that, you look at the, you know, my entire line of work and what I have, it proves, you know, if anything, it proves the other side. You know, you can't be a football coach in the United States of America and be racist and get away with it. It's just not going to happen because, I mean, look at the makeup of the teams. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I think or at least I believe that I don't know of any coaches on this staff that I would even consider accusing them of anything like that. So I think they'll sit down. I think that Chuba will go, well, this is what I want to see change. And if it's just I want to hear from people in a way that I know that they understand certain things that certain people are feeling, and just to know that you're understanding what we're going through and whatever. And if and then I think Coach Gundy can tell him one-on-one, man-to-man, this is what I believe, this is what I think, and I'm here to support you. And I think they'll move on.
Well, and sometimes for me, you know, I hate Twitter sometimes. I really do. The fact that it has to be the platform that some people use to reach other audiences with things like this. If this had happened if the picture had been out there and Twitter didn't exist and everything else social media wise, and Chuba and Mike Gundy had a conversation between each other and hashed things out, and either the result is Chuba stays or Chuba leaves, or Gundy stays or Gundy leaves, then so be it. But the fact that now it's out there, everybody gets dragged into it based on a single tweet, that's something that bothers me with social media. These are the types of things that I would prefer to see hashed out between the two parties involved, because I think the more details can come from it, more actual conversation and dialogue without third-party opinion and influence.
Well, that's all I had. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate the phone call. Yeah, I don't know about you guys exactly, like what you feel about that. I know how Tom feels about social media. I know, and here's the thing: there's good things that can come from social media. There has been that. What people say, there's a good thing social media exists because look what happened with the George Floyd situation. Sure, sure, absolutely. But there's some things like this where it needs to be more
and that's
interpersonal.
Why I'll say, and I'm just going to leave. I'm not going much further with this. I'm just saying that we're all pointed at what Chuba's saying, and obviously he started it. But he's also, and some people, I think we had a caller arguing that didn't make him a leader doing it. But if you see the replies from his teammates right now, I would disagree. I would say, because it's not just a Chuba thing. Just now, within the past 5 minutes, Tylan Wallace quote tweeted Chuba Hubbard saying it's about way more than football. Again, we've talked about some of the other stuff. It's not just Chuba who's saying these things right now, and that's where I think everyone needs to be cautious and I think, as I said in the first segment, we all just need to shut up and listen to what's going on instead of trying to interject our opinion or thoughts.
Well, and I mean, again, I get that. What I come back with is, we have the ability to give our thoughts on this right now.
But does it make them right?
No, it doesn't make them wrong either.
Especially three
it
white
doesn't
guys
make them right or wrong.
Sports.
Nor does it make it right.
Exactly.
Take your opinion and put it out there on Twitter and just unfound it. Now, if you got specifics that you got against, and I don't know, you're looking at these other players, if they're falling in line, it's more than football. I know for a fact the football team, and most teams all have this to some extent, they have a council of players that at any time of the year when they're together, one, two, or all of them, can come to the head coach, come to a position coach. In fact, it goes the other way. They have council meetings where the coaches go to them and say, what is on your mind? What do you not like? What do you want change, that big word change? What is it we can do to help you?
Now,
this is the way, to me, these are the routes you should take.
And I agree with that. I think part of the problem we have to keep in mind, though, is, and I'm not just saying because of the protests, but because of the pandemic, you probably can't have those meetings right now.
And I know
that's the difficulty I think we have to keep in
that's
mind.
being brought up. However,
no, I'm not defending.
No, I know.
I'm just saying that the players can't come together. That council can't come together.
Right.
Gundy can't go talk to that council.
It's not going to be. It's not going to be as easy. There is, but the thing is, there's still ways to communicate. So yeah, and that's I was thinking that exact same thing that you were just said, Jason. Is that if we were in a situation right now where you could just walk over to Mike Gundy.
2/3 of the team is here
right.
already.
If everybody could get together in the same room with Gundy and hash it out and sit down, if that were allowed and able to happen, maybe this doesn't hit Twitter.
Well, Gundy met with the team, at least 2/3 of it, and not counting the third that came up today.
I'm talking like, and I don't know where if it's Gundy, where he is, whatever. I'm talking about emergency meeting. If Chuba sees something like this and it's under normal circumstances, does he go, hey, all the team needs to get together right now, coaches included, and we need to hash this thing out, and before anybody goes to social media or whatever.
That's my contention. I'm not saying he doesn't have the right to say anything he wants. Gundy has the right to. The fact that he wears a T-shirt or watches a certain network, as I said on Casey's show, doesn't categorize us at all. I mean, that's the way it is. If you're not with us, then you're against us. If you're not with me, then you're against me. I don't know that that's the way we need to approach this. I do not know Gundy in this light. Now, if we come up with 26 people, you saw it with Iowa. We saw that the strength coach.
Yeah.
One guy made comments that he was He wasn't very complimentary toward African Americans, and then it just kind of built on itself. The guy was suspended, and I don't know.
He was released. They fired him effectively, but he did get like a $1.1 million buyout.
Whatever, but he still doesn't have a job.
Right.
And maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But all it took was one accusation, and it kind of ran with it a little bit. I don't know that any of this is not true. All I say is if you go, and if I was speaking to my grandkids, I would say the same thing. If you're going to go on Twitter and you're going to put something out there that does not put somebody else in a good light, then you better find a way to support what you're saying and not just leave it hanging. I don't think that's the right thing to do.
And maybe he was doing it to try to, because again, we've seen a lot of his teammates and former players come out in response. So maybe that's what he was trying to do, to build momentum to if they feel that is the case. But we need to take a break, because when we come back, we the reason you were sticking around here is we need to talk about baseball.
Yes, sir.
Again,
Good news.
I'm sure we'll have a lot more of this to talk about throughout the week, especially when you come back in on Wednesday. But we do need to get to baseball, and we're down to the last couple of minutes. So we need to take a quick break.
Yep, we will do that, and we'll get back with some OSU baseball and try to throw in some Major League Baseball news as well. Coming up next to round up the afternoon sports drive.
Yeah, that's what I've been on. Yeah, that's what I've been on. Yeah, that's what I've been on. Yeah, that's what.
Welcome back. Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Jason Elmquist, Tom Dorado in studio with us. Let's get into some OSU baseball. Round out the show here.
Good stuff, man. We got a lot of people coming back.
That's right. We talked about as soon as we got news that spring athletes were given that extra year of eligibility there. Baseball specifically.
Real quick before we dive in, it just came across via tweet a message from Burns Hargis, considering everything. Says, I hear and respect the concerns expressed by our black student athletes. This is a time for unity of purpose to confront racial inequalities and injustice. We will not tolerate insensitive behavior by anyone in Oklahoma State. That's all. I just wanted to share that the president of OSU has made a statement.
I mean, you're put into that position where you've got to come out. You just can't. Silence is not golden in this case.
Right.
At all. It's not going to be. So you have to come out with a generic something. Now, will there be conversations with Gundy and Hargis, Gundy and Holder, all three, regents? That's probably to be determined, I guess.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. The university has to give its mission statement, if you will, and have to come out with that. Because they don't want to be the ones that the next tweet comes out and says, where's the university? What are they saying on this thing?
Oh, the university, can't stay silent here. I mean, this is
silence is not golden.
Yeah, it's going on, and
but basically they said what we all know here.
Yeah,
and but you got to say it to reemphasize it. I guess you do, given in this. We'll hear a lot more about this, but getting back to baseball again. The extra year and the I don't want to say concessions, the relief the NCAA gave in terms of not 25% scholarships, expanding the roster size. That helped for everybody on college baseball, for sure.
Was there any mention of what they're limiting in regards to scholarships in general, or is it if a person had a scholarship, they're at least granted that amount if they're returning?
I think the ones who had it are granted that.
Okay.
Because you were given that.
But you don't take away from the incoming crop of scholarship athletes.
Each coach had, and let me back up on that. I don't think
because I'm not 100% certain on all that.
That's not correct. You have the right as an institution to give the same amount, less amount, or no amount.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You have that to make the budget work.
Right.
And I'm sure that there were some who didn't get as much, probably didn't like it. But at the same time, you have to. You don't have, while they gave you relief scholarship-wise, they didn't just say, oh, incidentally, you got about $4 million extra to work with. That's not the case. So each coach and college head coach has got to figure out now how to apportion that, not only with the ones who came back, not only with the ones who were going to stay anyway because they were just moving up a year, but also the new guys coming in. So That's a balancing act right there that every coach is going to have to do.
And I'm sure you freed a little bit of space up because you did have, was it 2 transfer out, like freshmen? I'm assuming, I don't know how much scholarship that they had going their way.
I don't know if there's a lot of scholarship money in those 2 guys.
Right.
I don't know. And I think you'll see some more before everything's said and done, only because of, reality sets in. Because when you're talking about the guys who are coming back, you talk about Cabanas, Garcia, Hewitt, McCusker.
Now that you know everyone ahead of you is actually coming back, maybe
take a look at what you
start
had
moving.
Other than Polkovich last year.
Yeah, this is important to see some of these names.
I don't see me moving up here.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do? Well,
so ultimately, two seniors not returning. They're going because they
that
signed.
Would be Leeper and Polkovich was a junior.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So Mitch, talk Leeper here for a minute because he signed with the Chicago Cubs.
Takes the $20,000 undrafted.
Well, I didn't think he was coming back, and I think I told you that initially. I think the age factor's in there somewhere. I think he's probably closer to 24 than he is 23, probably. And you start adding up. He's had a couple of Tommy Johns, and I don't know how much where he'll be able to play. That's the other thing. I mean, as far as we know, no minor leagues are going right now. I guess he could do this thing that the drillers have got. No, he could because he'd be a pro, so he could do that.
Yeah.
I don't know where he'll go with the Cubs, quite frankly.
At the very least, though, he guaranteed himself $20,000.
There's $20,000 now. But I think he was probably ready to go anyway because of his age and being here. And Polkovich is going to make almost $800,000, I think.
It was $793,000. Yep.
So it's good for him.
Yep.
But consider what Oklahoma State quote lost versus just using the team down the road. Oklahoma lost its entire starting rotation on a weekend,
and including one of their top incoming
recruits.
pitchers. Yeah.
So those guys just don't grow on trees. You know? When you lose that, you're in a big world of hurt. Now I don't know.
And I mean, if you think about it, they haven't. OSU's not losing a single starting pitcher.
You got Parker Scott coming back,
right?
Which was a huge. I'm coming back.
Brella confirmed he's coming back as well, right? Again, he was a midweek guy, but
he's still a valuable piece to what you got. And of course, you got the freshmen, Osmond and Campbell, who are back. So you talk about a contrast of what Holiday has back versus what Skip Johnson doesn't have back. I mean, I remember Tom Holiday saying when we had him on way back when, because he had a lot of those guys up at the Cape, he said Oklahoma's sitting on a big year. But he was talking about Cavalli, Prater, Acker. Well, maybe not all being back, but some of them being back. You take those guys out of the mix, and all of a sudden Oklahoma is not looking near as good as it did before the draft, and you lose 3 to 5 rounds. That's a big hit.
I know you usually just focus in on who's coming back from the current roster, but have you heard if any of the guys they had signed?
No, nobody did. No.
So all the guys who signed should be coming in the fall. That's also significant because I know at least one of them, McLean, was I think by MLB.com scouts ranked him as their 66th best prospect.
And there's where the 5 rounds helped Oklahoma State, helped everybody around the country, but in Oklahoma State situation. Because not only would you have lost these guys most of these guys coming back, you would have lost the ones who signed with you somewhere in 30 rounds.
Right.
40 rounds. Right. I mean, you would have lost. I say you would have lost. They would have been tempted.
Right. That's what my next question was. Out of those guys, would they have all gone? Who would have gone?
Because even if you took one of them in the 8th round, the money in the 8th round would have been more significant than the $20,000 they would have gotten as undrafted. So maybe that's why
but some kids want to go to college too.
Right.
There was a couple. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but one of them there said, "I also can't wait to go back and finish my degree as well." It gets this chance.
And plus, they're sitting on another good year. These guys were showed the capacity they had. Polkovich was a big part of that.
Yeah.
So they'll have to figure something there. But the fact is, all their starting pitchers are back. That most of their position players are back. Plus, I think everyone would say, I wanted to play in that new stadium.
There was
a chance to come back.
A number of the statements,
play there.
according to them, that their posts on Twitter were, let's do something special at O'Brate. Let's break in O'Brate. I mean, that's huge. That is. That plays into it a lot. So, bottom line, it could be a special year OSU baseball.
I think so, yeah. I don't think we was. Now, I think Josh is right in this case. Even though we painted a bleak picture for OU because they lost those 3 pitchers, they may have some people in the wings ready to go. But I think college baseball was the greatest benefactor of the short season because everybody that got a chance to come back. I don't know if everybody did come back, but I would gather that most of the starters from the year ago that had eligibility didn't get drafted came back to every school. Yeah. So if you're gonna get to college, if you're gonna get to Omaha this year, you're gonna have to really step it up because there's some great competition coming up.
Was there if we would have had a full 40 round draft, was there any other junior eligible player that you think could have potentially been drafted that maybe now obviously is going to be coming back no matter what?
Well, Polkovich obviously,
right outside of Polkovich, yeah.
I think Seifert might have got a look. Okay. Thompson might have got a look. Now again, we're talking way down the line, and I don't know if they would even taken it.
Right, yeah, but they could have been offered more money than the 20,000. Because it was only 20,000. Maybe they stuck around.
And you never know. That's always hard to. What's going to happen? But the fact that there was only 5 rounds benefited college baseball.
Oh, certainly.
Now Skip Johnson might call in and say, "Where do you see the benefit here, big boy?" And he may be right there. But that was an anomaly right there. That didn't happen around the country like that. And, they took a big hit on the pitching side. But Oklahoma State, when you look at Polkovich and Leaper, they may lose another here or there just because they want to go play someplace else. But overall, they're intact from what they had for the first 18 games last year.
And obviously, we've talked about how they're likely to probably, at max, maybe have 10 rounds next year.
That's what I hear now. I don't know. I think Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Again, if they don't have a season, that could ultimately go back to 5. But Tom, I did want to ask you though, real quick, do you think because of all the cutting that they've made at the minor league, which they were going to do before the pandemic anyway, that they ultimately maybe shorten the draft just for going forward permanently, where it's maybe not 40 rounds, you're looking at 25 or 30 maybe?
I would guess this: if for some reason they don't, I've been predicting they're going to play, but if they keep throwing these proposals back and forth, let's say they don't play, okay, I think that definitely impacts how many rounds are going to be next year.
Right.
Sure.
If they can get any kind of games in and get some TV money coming in, then that money will be there for. They just can't ignore the supply system, though. That's the thing.
Right.
You can't. That's baseball is about quality coming out of quantity. That's what it is.
Always has been. Let's get to that real quick. Segue into it to round out the show here. It was announced, a couple days ago, that after Major League Baseball came back with that proposal of 85% of the prorated salaries, we knew it was going to be rejected, and it was. The players said no, and also we're done talking about it. Tell us when and where we're starting the season, is what they told Major League Baseball. Now Rob Manfred comes out today and says all of a sudden, if you remember correctly, last week he said he was 100% sure there'd be baseball this year. There would unequivocally be a season. Today he comes out and says now he's not too sure. His quote was, not confident that there will be a 2020 baseball season, and that, quote, as long as there's no dialogue with the MLB Players Association.
Which kind of got shut down. I think it was Saturday.
Yeah. So, but, and part of me is like, he already talked about that, and then they do that. He has this right to implement that 50-game season. Just do that if they're ready. If they're saying that's fine. Let's go ahead.
I think they're worried about. Again, Manfred has that ability to say we're going to play 50 games. Let's go.
Right.
But litigation can surface out of that because then they can go back to the very first contract talks. Well, what are we going to do with these 50 games? You're going to give me 85% of my salary?
That's what they're saying. They're not. They don't. As the owners and all that don't want to play until they waive that right that they agreed to.
Waive that right.
Yeah, which that's why people are saying no season because they're not going to waive that right.
Worse now for sure.
This has gone up and down and up and down, and then he even admitted too. We got to point out that Rob Manfred admitted this is awful for the optics of Major League Baseball.
Sure.
It has absolutely caused major destruction to the game.
Out of work.
Yeah.
How do you explain to somebody who's trying to get their money back from being shut down for 4 months?
This is unlike anything we've seen in Major League Baseball since '94. It's crazy. It is.
Business.
That's going to do it for us here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. A lot of stuff to get to today. We didn't even hit on half the stuff we planned on because we had bombshell news. But before we started off,
I'll be interested in seeing how this all plays out. Yeah. I'm sure it will. Rightly or wrongly, it'll play out, I guess.
Yeah, we'll keep up with it and develop it during the week as it comes along. That's Jason Elmquist. That's Tom Dorado. Thanks for sticking around, TD, for a little bit for us there. Appreciate all the callers. And this has been the Afternoon Sports Drive. I'm Patrick Wheeler.